All right, welcome to the first actual drawing lesson. So this is my free lesson I'm offering. Follow along. I'm going to be teaching you some things that will hopefully be really helpful, and there's going to be some preliminary stuff I'm going to ask you to do as well. All right, I'm going to switch back over to something we've seen before, but I want to talk about it a little bit more in depth. All right, we were talking about your left brain versus your right brain, and I did say I was going to talk more about this in my first lesson, so that's what I'm doing right now. So your left brain memorizes things, it spells, it knows facts, it's logical, it categorizes things. If you are right-handed, you are predominantly left brain dominant, which is what most people are left brain dominant. If you're left-handed, you're predominantly right brain dominant because your left brain controls your right hand and your right brain controls your left hand. So that can be a little confusing, and it really doesn't matter, but I just want you to understand a little bit of what we're going to be doing. To fully draw well, think well, create well, you really need to access both sides of your brain. If you're one of those rare people, I was this as a child, and I've now become more predominantly right hand, but if you're both-handed or ambidextrous, you are both-handed, and this world is not built for left-handed people. It's not built for both-handed people. We have right-handed scissors. We smear our pages if you write with your left hand. There's all sorts of problems that you know about if you're both-handed or left-handed. But this is a skill set you're going to have some advantages if you're both-handed or if you're left-handed. And some of these exercises might come more naturally to you. But regardless, you will improve with these exercises and be able to really, really draw super realistically either way. I'm going to show you a weird exercise that you can try just to kind of see the difference between your left and your right brain, how your brain doesn't like to use both halves of your brain at the same time. It kind of switches between using one or the other. There's been some interesting studies about people who have had to have the hemispheres of their brain separated. Normally, they're connected by neural pathways, and your brain is constantly moving back and forth between your left and right brain and using both of them, but alternately. This is my limited understanding. I'm not a brain scientist. But what you'll find is sometimes people with certain medical conditions have to have the neural pathways split in their brain. Specifically, epilepsy is one where this has been done in the past. So if that's the case, sometimes because hearing or vision or recognizing symbols or recognizing letters or numbers or sounds is one side of your brain versus the other. When that brain is split, one ear will recognize the word cow, and the other ear won't be able to recognize what that word is, but it'll recognize moo, but it won't recognize the word cow, versus one ear versus the other, or symbols or images. It's very confusing. All that tells us is the different halves of our brain have different functions. And if you know a lot about the brain, or if you know someone who's had a stroke, you know that the different parts of the brain can develop skills that another part of the brain took care of before. So I'm not going to get too much into that, but I am going to help you learn how to use both halves of your brain. So let's do this weird exercise. I'm going to go back to my big screen. All right, if you hold your fingers facing each other, I'm going to just kind of demonstrate this. And most people can't do this exercise, and this exercise is kind of meant to show you how your brain can kind of argue with itself. So if you imagine pedals on a bicycle, if you are spiraling the same direction, both of my hands are doing the same thing. It's alternate. They're going low up my chest and then down away from me like this. If I move away, you can see that they're spiraling around like the spokes of a bicycle or the pedals of a bicycle. What's hard to do, your brain can do that pretty easily. What's hard to do is have your brain make two opposite circles at the same time. If you're a drummer, you might be able to do this. Or if you're someone that plays a musical instrument or piano, this might be easier for you because you've already developed different hand skills to have your hands doing different things at the same time. But if you try this, here's a way to do it. If you start with your fingers at the top, move your fingers in circles the opposite direction. So I'm going in opposite circles now, top to bottom, different circle directions. If you can do this, you are a rare person. I've practiced this a lot. But if you can do that, that means you already have some amazing hand-eye coordination between the two halves of your brain. You might be both-handed or you might be left-handed. Another way to do this is just make a circle kind of starting low, going up your body and away from you, and then have the other one do the opposite, where it goes tall and away from you. So I'm alternating these patterns, and my fingers are at the top and the bottom at the opposite times, which is not the same as this. It's this. Anyway, if you can't do that, it doesn't matter at all. The point of that exercise is it's kind of like rubbing your tummy and patting your head. It's your brain doing two different activities with different hands. And remember, each hand is controlled by the opposite side of your brain. Left brain controls right hand, right brain controls left hand, and same with your eyes. Pretty crazy stuff. Apparently different hemispheres of your eyes are controlled with different parts of your brain. Who knows? But anyway, one of the things we're going to be doing is learning how to utilize both halves of our brain with some weird exercises. And we're going to be starting some of that today. All right. I'm going to skip on through some things. So we talked about how those hand circles can help us, and we're going to talk about some ways to access the different parts of our brain. All right, one of the things we're going to try to not do is draw with symbols. Now, the first thing I'm going to ask you to actually do today, and I'm going to switch to my down-facing camera in just a minute, but I'm going to be working from this workbook called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. There's a link to buy this. You don't need this for the first lesson. I'm actually going to email you printables for this. And the printables you're going to need are part of this book. So we're not going to be violating their copyright because you are required to buy this for this class. So the very first set of pages in here are these. And that's what we're going to be working from today. And for the first lesson, I will include these printouts for you to be able to follow along. But before you actually start the first lesson, there's two drawings you have to do. And I know you probably aren't going to want to do them before you learn what I'm going to start to teach you. But it's really important that you do these first two drawings to document where you are in your drawing skills now. Let me just go back to something just to reiterate this. So if I click through our before and after pictures that we looked at here, way back here, what I'm going to ask you to do is to do your before hand, and which I haven't shown you an example of, I'll talk about that now, and your before face drawing. And there's some specific things I'm going to ask you to do before you actually start learning from me. Because what I want you to do is document where you draw right now. So if you're the greatest artist in the world and you already feel like you can render amazingly, we want to document where you are now so you can see your improvement. And if you feel like you can't draw at all and all you can do is stick figures, that's okay. I want your stick figures. And we're going to document that so that later on, you can have the reveal that you're looking at right here with these students, and you're seeing their before and after, and you're seeing that amazing progress. I'm going to ask you to do that too. So let's talk about what that's going to look like. So I've written down some things, and I'm going to ask you to just get some 8.5 by 11 paper. If you have nice drawing paper, you can do it on your nice drawing paper. If all you have is crappy printer paper, that is totally fine for this. We're going to ask you to do your final hand and face on some nice drawing paper, and that's in the supplies I'm going to ask you to buy if you decide to go ahead and do all these lessons with me. But if all you have is 8.5 by 11 paper, that's fine. And I don't want this to be too huge. I don't want it to be too small. I'd like it to be about the size that we're going to do your finished self-portrait on, which is going to be just about 8.5 by 11. It'll probably be just slightly larger than that. All right, so the first drawing I would like you to do is a drawing of your hand. And I have some rules for this because I want to avoid some pitfalls some students fall into when they're drawing their hand. One of the things I want you to do is I want you to draw your hand from the palm side. So I want you to be looking at your hand. Now, that said, you could imagine your hand facing towards you. If your best drawing comes from things you've memorized and certain skill sets or things you've learned to do to draw hands, I want you to use those things. I want you to draw the best, most realistic hand that you can. So I'd like it facing the paper. So when you're looking at it, I want to see it from this angle. I also don't want a flat hand. I want to see some bent fingers, And I also want to see some fingernails. So I don't want a closed fist because I want to make this difficult. Two of the most difficult things to draw are hands and faces. So I'm going to ask you to do that. And then we're going to learn how to do that realistically. If you can draw your hand, you can draw anything. If you can draw your face, you can draw anything. They're two of the most difficult things to draw, and I'm going to help you draw them amazingly. So you're going to get frustrated because most people do drawing these things, and just don't let it stop you. Just document what you can do. If you could do the best drawing of your hand in 30 seconds, that's all I want. If it takes you a whole day, that's what I want. I want you to show me your best work. If you know how to shade, I want you to shade. If you don't know how to shade, that's okay. So a bent hand facing the viewer, so your drawing will look like this. If you want to take a photograph of your hand and work from it, that's fine. If you want to look at your hand, that's fine. If you want to imagine your hand, that's fine, but I want to see it in a position like this. It could be a peace sign. I just want to see some open fingers somewhere. It could be hang loose, rock and roll, whatever you want to do. Let's stick to some friendly symbols. I'm going to ask you to share an image of this with the class later on. We'll either do a lesson where I record some of those responses, or we might even have a live Zoom where we can reveal our before and after hands together if I have a big group starting together. We'll see how this goes. It's my first time doing completely asynchronous lessons, which means you can work at your own pace, which is what we're doing. All right, I'm going to go to my down-facing camera for a minute. And I kind of want to talk about this, and I know it might be a little hard to see what I've written here. But for your hand drawing, here's some rules I would like. So first of all, after you or before you start your hand, I would like your name and your date on your paper, and that's because we're going to see your progress in about 3 months if you follow along at the rate of my students, which is 1 lesson a day. Or if you want to do multiple lessons a day, you can totally do that. That's over a 5-day week. If you do it over weekends too, you'll go even faster. There's about 27, 28 lessons. I'm doing these lessons as we speak, so that might change a little bit between when we start and when we finish. So that's why I'm saying I'm not exactly sure. I think that's about how many lessons there will be. So in theory, you could do it in 28 or 30 days if you are a real go-getter. So after you've drawn your hand, let me actually flip this over for a second. So rules for your hand, I want to see your entire hand. So it would look something like this. Try not to make it too small, and try not to make it so big parts of it are off the paper. I want to see your whole hand and a little bit of your wrist, something like this. Whatever you've got on your hand, you're going to draw. So if you wear a ring, you can take it off for your drawing, or you can leave it on, whatever you want to do. All right, we're back. So I've gone through these other points already, but basically I want to see some bent fingers. I want to see some nails showing. So not just this, not this. I want to see the palm side with some bent fingers so we get some wrinkles and things like that. Don't freak out if this is hard for you. It's hard for most people. I just want you to do your best. Give me your best drawing that you can, all right? What I don't want, and I do have a few people that try this occasionally, is just to put their hand flat and just trace it. Don't do that. That is not what I want. I don't care how terrible your hand looks. Don't trace it. That's really not drawing, and that's not what I want you to do. I also don't want your hand flat. Okay, so I do want to see some bent fingers. I know I've said this a few times, but I'm just trying to reiterate exactly what I want with some nails showing. All right. Also, after you've done that and you've put your name and your date on your paper, and you can just do that in the bottom corner, I'd like you to answer a few questions on the back. So number 1, how do you feel about your drawing? That might be, I feel like this is a great drawing. I already feel like very confident about my drawing. I'm just looking to improve a bit. You might say, I feel like this is the worst drawing anyone's ever seen. I'm embarrassed of it. Tell me what you feel. Really reflect how you feel, because later on when you see your improvement, I'm going to ask you to reread this and see if you've improved in the areas where you felt like you were needing improvement. Number 2, what's good about your drawing? If you feel like nothing, really look for something. Is there something that's good about it? Maybe it's what's good about it is you did it. You actually made an effort. Or maybe it's a great line drawing, but you're not sure how to shade. Or maybe you really feel like you got the shapes correct. Whatever that is, what's good about it? Number 3, what's bad about it, or what needs more improvement? What do you feel the worst about with your drawing? Maybe you don't know how to shade. Maybe you don't know how to make the shapes. Maybe you just feel like completely trapped and you don't even know how to approach this drawing. So number 3, what's bad about it or what needs the most improvement? And then number 4, what do you hope to learn to do better for this drawing? So and these are just to review, after you've done your hand drawing, you're answering these 4 questions on the back of the paper. So what do you hope to learn to do better with your drawing? All right. Later on, I'm going to ask you to turn a photo of this drawing that you do in, and I'll go over how to do that after you've joined the class. I'm trying to do this in a Google Classroom setup so I can actually give you feedback on each of your drawings and help you with any questions you might have. Then I'm going to ask you to put this drawing away. I don't want you to look at it after you've done it and photographed it and turned it in until we do the big hand reveal. So you're going to be tempted to pull this out or maybe redo it after you've learned some stuff. Don't do that. Put it away and don't look at it again until our big hand reveal. And you won't see it again until the reveal. And don't cheat. There are some ways you could cheat. Like I mentioned, don't trace your hand. Don't redraw your hand after we've already moved ahead and you've learned some stuff. All right, so that's for the hand drawing. Those are the rules for the hand. Let's talk about the face. These are the 2 drawings you're doing before I've taught you anything. So if you're skipping ahead, don't. Do follow all these lessons. Everything I'm going to tell you is essential. Okay, so for your face drawing, once again, name and date on the page. However you feel like you can draw your face the best is what I want you to do. Maybe you're going to work from a photograph. Maybe you're going to work from a mirror. Maybe you want to work from your imagination. Maybe you have great skill set at anime sort of drawing. Whatever you feel like you can do the best, that's what I want you to do, okay? When you draw your face, I want to see your entire face and your neck and the top of your head. Don't cut it off. Don't give me this. I want to see your entire head, but I also don't want your whole body. I don't want your torso in it. Just, your neck, top of your head, sides of your face, hair. That's what I'm looking for. If you wear glasses, it's optional to wear them on the drawing, however you want to do that. Same questions on the back for your face as for your hand, and the same rules apply. Don't cheat, and then you're going to put it away and not look at it again until we do the big face reveal. This will be the one where you really, really, really see your improvement, like for the students I just showed you, so stay with me. Just to review what those questions are, in case you forgot, you can just come back in the video, but how do you feel about your drawing? Number 1. Number 2, what's good about it? Number 3, what is bad about it or needs the most improvement? And you're answering these on the back of your drawing. If you don't want to write right on your drawing, you could paperclip another piece of paper to it. Number 4, what do you hope to learn or to do better? And then once again, you're going to be taking a photo of this. I'll go over some tips for that after you join the class. Put it away where you don't see it again until the reveal, and don't cheat. All right. One thing I don't think I mentioned is I want you to do this in pencil. If you have a lot of fancy drawing pencils, you can use those. All you really need is just a regular yellow pencil. This will be really versatile. I'll go over some more things about pencils later, and some of the supplies I'm telling you to get involve learning some things about pencils. All right, I'm going to pause my recording for a second and come right back. Okay, I'm back. I paused that because I really wanted to insert just a sample image of what your hand should look like, and I also noticed that even though this is still my first lesson, it's going pretty long. So I'm going to go ahead and break this into 2 sections. So I'll have a part A and a part B, or part 1 and part 2. So there's more for you to do. So stick around and look for the next section. But I'm going to go ahead and just show you what I'm talking about the before and after hands. So here's a sample hand. This is before instruction and after instruction. You're seeing a crazy amount of improvement there, obviously. Here's another one. So notice the hands aren't quite as amazing as the faces, but you're going to see some progress with your hand too. So these are some poses that would be okay. The student added some other background elements in. I'd prefer that you don't do that, but as long as it doesn't interfere with the hand, that's okay. I think this one is a really good example where you're seeing the hand from the front, you're seeing some bent fingers, you're seeing some fingernails, and these are both going to be a full page. You're only doing the before right now, okay? So the drawing that would be on the left is the one that you're working on right now. All right? So come back for part B or part 2. We'll see what I label it in a few minutes, and I look forward to seeing your drawings. All right, let's do this.